It's well known that there's a Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy Easter egg in Just Cause 4. There's a lot of guides for it online, and there's also many videos about people playing it. However, did you know that there's actually a second Getting Over It Easter egg in the game? You probably don't, because there's barely anyone talking online about this Easter egg. Probably because it's in the Daredevils of Destruction DLC that not many people played after the disastrous launch of Just Cause 4. So this track is actually much longer and much harder than the original track. You can find it over here on the island of the new DLC. I don't know what the map is doing, by the way, but it's fine. So it's somewhere over here in the bit of sea, the inland sea. So we will travel there and then we can start. So here we are. We should look for, I think it's a small platform with a cauldron. I think there it is. So just behind the pipeline with the waterfall. And there's the cauldron. Simply enter the cauldron if you can get started. Now as you see, the moment you enter it, the rest of the level spawns in. Before that, none of this is here. So just yeet yourselves off the platform and we go underwater. Just make sure you don't drown here, especially on this part. It's pretty easy, but you need to be fast, otherwise you will drown. And there we go, air. Nice.
I want to tell you about a book I've been reading. Italo Calvino's 6 Memos for the Next Millennium. The 6 Memos were a series of talks that Calvino was going to give in 1985. Sadly, he passed away before he was able to give the lectures, so we only have his notes on what he was going to say. The topics for the first 5 memos are lightness, quickness, exactitude, visibility, and multiplicity. The 6th memo was going to be on consistency, but Calvino hadn't started on that before passing away. Calvino chose topics that he values in writing, but I think they apply equally well to game design, and that's what I want to talk about. In the first memo, we learn that Calvino values lightness over weight. That doesn't mean that heavy stories are bad, just that he, like me, prefers lightness. Calvino emphasizes that there is a lightness that is thoughtful and that is different from the frivolous lightness we all know. Indeed, thoughtful lightness can make frivolity seem heavy and opaque. The example I most connect with is The Unbearable Lightness of Being, a book that is about incredibly heavy topics, but is a pleasure to read because it treats them with a thoughtful lightness. Video games communicate lightness through their setting, but also through their movement mechanics. A game in which the movement flows frees up a lot of cognitive load from the player, allowing designers to add more layers, making the game richer. It's also simply delightful to move swiftly with a grappling hook or a double jump, or just flying, and this delight alone can make a game worth playing.
Yeah, just like the normal game and also the other Easter egg, Bennett Foddy will just occasionally have his own input about what you're doing and share some nice philosophical quotes, which, as you get angrier and angrier, you can no longer appreciate. What you may or may not realize is that some of these surfaces are actually much more slippery than others. So these umbrellas, if you land on them, you kind of slide off, as you can see. And sometimes when you land on a rock, you just stay there. So there's a lot of learning process in trying to complete this trial. Oh. Yeah, sometimes that's actually the best way to go. Just launch yourself and hope for the best. I like how that guy's just giving commentary. Yes. Come on. Come on. Rico, you can do this. I think I'm stuck. Sort of. Oh. There we go. I got it.
Calvino's second memo is on quickness, and he begins it with an old legend which I will retell here. Late in life, the Emperor Charlemagne fell in love with a German girl. The court barons were dismayed to see that their sovereign, overcome by ardent desire and forgetful of royal dignity, was neglecting imperial affairs. When the girl suddenly died, the dignitaries sighed with relief, but only briefly, for Charlemagne's love did not die with the girl. The Emperor had the embalmed body brought to his chamber and refused to leave its side. Archbishop Turpin, alarmed by this morbid passion and suspecting some enchantment, decided to examine the corpse. Hidden beneath the dead tongue, he found a gemstone ring. As soon as he took possession of it, Charlemagne hastened to have the corpse buried and directed his love towards the person of the Archbishop. To extricate himself from that awkward situation, Turpin threw the ring into Lake Constance. Charlemagne fell in love with the lake and refused to leave its shores. Since the legend is old, there are many different versions of it. Often they have lots of detail and extensive dialogue, but Calvino says he prefers this quick version. I feel like quickness is a quality that has suffered in recent games. Old games always get straight to the point. No long tutorials or intro cutscenes, and the first level is always a good level. Calvino says that quick stories have an economy and a rhythm to them. And those words are not often used together, but I can see how quickness helps with rhythm, and the term economy suggests that the time will be well used, that the experience was worth it. Calvino's third memo is on exactitude, which quite fittingly he defines exactly as 1. A well-defined, well-considered design for the work. 2. The evocation of clear, sharp, memorable images. And 3. A language that is as precise as possible in its choice of words and in its expression of the nuances of thought and imagination. The benefits of exactitude are easiest to see in board games with their precise rules based on small integers and discrete pieces. Video games like to go for large numbers, a large world, a large amount of damage, large amounts of experience points. But exactitude gets lost in that. When an upgrade costs 4 stone in a board game, getting that upgrade feels more satisfying than when it costs 4,000 experience points in a video game. Video games on a grid have more exactitude than video games set in a continuous world. The best physics puzzlers always use grid-based physics. In puzzles where the physics is not exact, you often waste minutes trying the wrong solution because it isn't clear whether the problem is in your plan or in your execution.
Right, some good progress here. I don't think I can reach this. No, not even close. And I think there's a barrier on top, so I think I have to go this way.
I suppose it's time to introduce myself. Speaking to you is Bennett Foddy, who was kind enough to come to the studio to read these lines for me, but he did not write them. My name is Malta Skarupka. I'm an AI programmer on Just Cause 4. You may have seen my floating head on top of the church. Additional credits go to Robert Meyer, who started the first Getting Over It Easter egg. His character is driving the boat. Jan Kerr did the animation for the Easter egg and modeled the cauldron, and Willie Cheng designed the level for the first Easter egg. If you're frustrated on this one, you can entirely blame me, though. But thanks for making it this far. I hope you played the original Getting Over It. It's a game for a certain kind of person, and you might be that person.
Actually, fun fact, I played that game this week. And even though the controls don't necessarily transfer over completely, it's still some really good practice for this Easter egg. So if you're gonna do this yourself, be aware that it's probably much harder than it looks right now, because I had to practice. I think the first time I did this, it took me about 1.5 hours to complete it.
In the fourth memo, Calvino talks about visibility. He talks about stories that emerge from strong visual images, like a man cut in 2 halves, each of which goes on living independently. Or a boy who climbs up a tree and travels from tree to tree without ever coming back down. Strong visual images are important in games as well. I think games have to worry about a different kind of visibility. Games always have the problem that they have to explain themselves to the player. If a combo in a fighting game seems to only work half the time and the player doesn't understand why, that's a bad combat system. If an AI character makes a decision and the player doesn't understand why the AI made that decision, that's bad AI. The player will puzzle about mysterious AI behavior once or twice, but soon they'll stop trying to interpret it, and thus stop trying to really interact with it. Lack of visibility is often the reason why players seem stupid, like when they can't solve a seemingly obvious problem. The player doesn't know or remember that they can do something that the game expects them to do. But it's a mistake to dumb down the game in reaction to a lack of visibility, because players often enjoy the challenge in solving the problem once they understand it.
This is kind of like the chimney in the normal game. Only the chimney is slightly narrower, so you can kind of push yourself up and then... Oh, actually I can do this. Nice. Careful. I can't see. Okay, we're good. Now, I might be able to go from the left side to climb up those rocks. But I'm not entirely sure if I will bounce off or stay there. So I'm gonna bet on the right.
Calvino's fifth memo is on multiplicity. He talks about a kind of rich complexity that is inherent to life. He uses, for example, this quote: "An unforeseen disaster is never the consequence of a single factor, but rather is like a whirlwind, a point of cyclonic depression in the consciousness of the world, toward which a whole multiplicity of converging causalities have conspired." He talks about works which explore this complexity. For example, a book that has one chapter for each room in a Parisian apartment complex, or a story that follows a single object throughout its lifetime.
Left it is. If I can get a good bounce going, I should be able to kind of pull myself over it in like one go. Come on. No, no. Yes. Come on. One more. There we go. Easy. I think we're about 2/3 in.
Covering all the complexity of an apartment complex is beyond games today. But some game designers explore the opposite direction, drilling in on the complexity of a small part. They explore a design idea fully, approach it from all angles, and build an unexpectedly rich game out of it. As a result, you get games that manage to surprise repeatedly. Obvious or repetitive ideas don't require this depth of exploration. When playing these games, you feel like they were made with care, a welcoming feeling. Sadly, it looks like Calvino didn't start his notes on the sixth memo of consistency. But Jonathan Blow once gave a talk about 6 memos for the next millennium, and he covered consistency very well. That talk, which you can find on YouTube, is where I first heard about the book.
And I think we're close to the end now.
You're reaching the end of this Easter
There we
egg,
go.
and I'm glad that you stuck with it. It was made entirely in spare hours taken from my normal work, and I'm sorry for all the rough edges that I would have ironed out if I'd worked on this full time. But I'm glad to have made it, and I want to say a very special thanks to Bennett Foddy for making Getting Over It, and for reading this. Thank you for playing.
Come on. Yeah, I can do this. Easy. Ooh, really close. I remember the first time when I did this Easter egg, I really struggled with this jump. But because I've played the original game, this now feels so much easier. Come on. I think I'm too far to the right. Yes. Okay, line up and go. Ooh, maybe? Nope. And when I say easier, it's still not easy. It's just I can at least reach the chair. I really struggled with that the first time around. Don't fall. Don't fall. Rico, stop. Stop. Got him. And now you just stay on it. Wait for it. And... Come on. It's supposed to... Yeah, kind of. It's kind of broken. There we go. We made it. So yeah, that's it. The second Getting Over It Easter egg in Just Cause 4. Then you can leave and you can just walk around here. And you can even see the whole track from the side. So yeah, like I said, really fun to try. Give it a shot yourself. It's much harder than the other one, so you will need a bit of practice. It might take you an hour the first time you try it, but it's a really fun waste of your time. So have fun and see you next time.